When kindness costs you everything, sometimes fate has an even bigger plan. Jasmine Thompson never expected to make headlines. She was just a hard-working waitress at the Blue Moon Diner in Cleveland, trying to make ends meet as a single mom. When LeBron James walked into her diner late one night, she did what came naturally. She treated him like any other person who needed a moment of peace. That simple act of kindness got her fired. But what happened next would uncover a 30-year-old secret connecting her family to the NBA superstar in ways she never could have imagined. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness have ripples that span generations, and some stories refuse to stay buried forever. This is one of them. Jasmine Thompson's feet hurt. They always hurt these days, but tonight felt worse than usual. The midnight shift at the Blue Moon Diner stretched ahead of her like a long, empty road. She adjusted her name tag, smoothed her black apron, and forced a smile onto her tired face. "Order up for table 6, Kenny, the cook, called from the kitchen window. His voice echoed through the nearly empty diner. Jasmine grabbed the plates of steaming food and headed to her table. The familiar smell of French fries and burgers filled the air. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten since breakfast, trying to save money on staff meals. "Here you go, folks," she said, setting down the plates with practiced ease. "Can I get you anything else?" The teenage couple at the table shook their heads, already digging into their food. Jasmine noticed they were sharing one meal between them, probably to save money. Without a word, she slipped an extra side of fries onto their table and walked away before they could protest. Her phone buzzed in her apron pocket. It was a text from Mrs. Martinez, her elderly neighbor who watched 8-year-old Maya during night shifts. "Maya had a nightmare. She's okay now, but asking for you." Jasmine's heart squeezed in her chest. She ducked into the break room and hit speed dial. "Mommy!" Maya's voice came through, small but bright. "Hey, baby girl, Mrs. Martinez said you had a bad dream?" "Yeah, but I'm okay now. I did my breathing like you taught me." Pride swelled in Jasmine's chest. Her daughter was growing up so fast, becoming braver and stronger every day. "That's my girl. Want me to sing you our special song?" "Yes, please." Jasmine hummed softly into the phone, an old lullaby her own mother used to sing. By the end, Maya's breathing had steadied. "Love you, Mom. Don't work too hard. Love you more, sweetie. See you at breakfast." Hanging up, Jasmine wiped away a stray tear. Maya was too young to be worrying about her mother working too hard. But that's how it had been since Kevin left them 3 years ago, disappearing like morning mist without so much as a goodbye. Back in the diner, Jasmine checked her tables. The teenage couple had finished their meal, leaving a small pile of crumpled bills. Under the money was a note scrawled on a napkin. "Thank you for the extra fries. You're an angel," she smiled, tucking the note into her pocket along with all the others she'd saved over the years. Small kindnesses were her weakness, even when she could barely afford them herself. "Thompson!" Mr. Reed, the manager, called from his office. "Table 4 needs a refill." "On it, sir." Mr. Reed watched her like a hawk, especially during night shifts. He was obsessed with rules and proper procedure. "No special treatment for anyone," he always said, even if the president himself walked in. The Blue Moon Diner had been featured in local news a few times for serving celebrities, and Mr. Reed was determined to avoid any media attention that might disrupt his carefully controlled establishment. As Jasmine refilled coffee cups and wiped down tables, her mind wandered to her second job at the convenience store. She'd have to be there at 7 a.m., just 2 hours after her shift ended here. Then home to get Maya ready for school, a quick nap if she was lucky, and back to the diner by 4 p.m. The bell above the door chimed. A group of loud college students stumbled in, probably from the bars downtown. Jasmine plastered on her professional smile and grabbed menus. "Welcome to Blue Moon. Booth or table?" One of the boys, wearing a backwards baseball cap, grinned up at her. "What's your recommendation, beautiful?" Jasmine's smile didn't waver. She'd dealt with drunk flirting plenty of times before. "The booths are more comfortable, especially if you've had a long night." She led them to a corner booth, quietly grateful they weren't sitting in her other sections. Sarah, the other waitress on duty, could handle them. Jasmine had enough on her plate with her regular customers, the night shift truckers, the early morning factory workers, and the occasional insomniac looking for coffee and conversation. At 2 a.m., she took her mandatory break, sinking into a chair in the break room. Her phone showed 3 job rejection emails from places she'd applied to last week. Each one started with, "We regret to inform you." She'd been trying to find something better, something that could let her spend more time with Maya. But without a college degree, her options were limited. The break room wall was covered with employee notices and regulations. Among them was a new one, printed in bold red letters. Reminder: all staff must follow media protocol. No photos or social media. Posts about celebrity customers. No special treatment. No autograph requests. Violation will result in immediate termination. Jasmine shook her head. Mr. Reed had put that up after a busboy posted a selfie with a local news anchor last month. The poor kid had been fired on the spot. Back on the floor, she checked her tables again. The college students were gone, leaving, behind a mess of spilled drinks and scattered fries. But they'd also left Sarah a decent tip, which made the cleanup worth it. As she wiped down their table, Jasmine noticed something shiny under the booth. Reaching down, she found a wallet. Inside was several $100s in cash and an ID belonging to the boy in the baseball cap. Without hesitation, she turned it in to Mr. Reed. He raised his eyebrows at her honesty. That much cash could have paid her electric bill and then some. "Good work, Thompson," he said gruffly. "I'll make sure it gets to lost and found." The rest of her shift passed in a blur of coffee refills, plate deliveries, and quiet conversations with regulars. By 4 a.m., her feet were screaming, but her apron pocket was heavy with tips. Maybe, just maybe, she'd have enough extra this week to buy Maya those art supplies she'd been eyeing. As she counted out her tips in the break room, Jasmine found the napkin note from the teenage couple. She pinned it to the break room bulletin board, next to dozens of similar notes she'd collected over the years. Some of her co-workers teased her about it, but these little reminders of kindness kept her going on the hardest nights. The morning crew began arriving, bringing with them the smell of fresh coffee and the promise of dawn. Jasmine gathered her things, checked her reflection in the bathroom mirror, and tried to smooth her curly hair into something presentable for her next job. "Hey, Jasmine," called Kenny from the kitchen. "Take these home to Maya." He handed her a box of leftover muffins. "That would have been thrown out anyway." "Thanks, Kenny. You're the best." As she stepped out into the cool morning air, Jasmine felt the familiar mix of exhaustion and determination that had become her constant companion. In 3 hours, she'd be sharing breakfast with Maya, watching her daughter's face light up over chocolate chip muffins. That thought alone made every tired step worth it. The city was just beginning to wake up as Jasmine walked to her car, the old Honda that barely started most days. She had no way of knowing that in less than 24 hours, her entire life would change, that this ordinary night shift would be her last at the Blue Moon Diner, that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can ripple out in ways we never expect. But for now, she was just Jasmine Thompson, single mom, double-shift waitress, trying. her best to make it through another day. Little did she know, fate had other plans. The next evening's shift started like any other. Jasmine had managed 3 hours of sleep between her jobs, just enough to keep her going. Maya had aced her math test, and they'd celebrated with Kenny's leftover muffins before Mrs. Martinez arrived to babysit. "Order up," Kenny's voice boomed through the kitchen window at 11:30 p.m. The diner was quieter than usual for a Friday night. A light rain tapped against the windows, keeping most customers at home. The bell above the door chimed. Jasmine looked up from wiping a table and nearly dropped her rag. Through the door walked LeBron James, the LeBron James, wearing a plain black hoodie and looking exhausted. A baseball cap pulled low couldn't quite hide his famous face. Sarah, who was supposed to take the next customer, suddenly became very busy with her coffee pot. Even Kenny peeked through the kitchen window and ducked back down. Everyone knew Mr. Reed's rules about celebrities, and nobody wanted to risk their job. But Jasmine saw something else in LeBron's face. The same tiredness she recognized in her own mirror every morning. The look of someone carrying heavy responsibilities. "Welcome to Blue Moon," she said, approaching his table with a menu. She kept her voice at its normal friendly level, not too excited, not too starstruck. "Would you like to sit somewhere quieter? We've got a corner booth with a bit more privacy." Relief flickered across his face. "That'd be great, thanks." She led him to the back corner, away from the windows. As he settled into the booth, she noticed him wincing slightly. "Rough game tonight?" she asked, setting down the menu. He looked up, surprised by her casual tone. "Yeah, you could say that. We lost in overtime." Jasmine nodded sympathetically. "Those are the hardest. Can I start you off with something to drink? Our chocolate milkshakes are pretty good for tough nights." A genuine smile cracked through his tired expression. "Actually, that sounds perfect." As she walked away, Jasmine could feel Sarah and Kenny staring at her. Mr. Reed was in his office, probably reviewing security footage as usual. She knew she should just take the order and keep things professional. But something told her this. Customer needed more than just food tonight. When she returned with the milkshake, LeBron was staring at his phone, his forehead creased with worry. "Penny for your thoughts?" she asked, setting down the shake. "Though I guess you could probably buy all my pennies and then some." He laughed, a real laugh this time. "My son's having trouble at school. Basketball pressure, you know? Everyone expects him to be just like his dad." Jasmine thought of Maya, how she worked so hard to be brave when other kids teased her about not having a father around. That must be tough, having to live up to such a big shadow. My daughter Maya, she's 8, and she always says the hardest part of any day is just being yourself, when everyone wants you to be something else. LeBron looked up at her, really looked at her for the first time. Maya sounds pretty wise for 8. She is. Gets it from her grandmother, certainly not from me. Jasmine smiled, then caught herself. She was being too casual, too friendly. "Sorry, you probably want to look at the menu. Our burgers are pretty famous, but personally, I'd recommend the breakfast platter. Nothing fixes a rough night like breakfast food." "I'll trust your judgment," he said, handing back the menu without looking at it. "Breakfast sounds good." As she turned to put in his order, he added, "Hey, what's your name?" "Jasmine." "Jasmine Thompson." Something flickered across his face. Recognition? But it was gone so fast she thought she'd imagined it. In the kitchen, Kenny was practically bouncing with excitement as he cooked the order. "Girl, do you know who that is? That's LeBron. And you're just chatting with him like he's any regular customer." "Because tonight, that's exactly what he is," Jasmine said firmly. "Just someone who needs a good meal and a moment of peace." When she brought out his food, she'd added extra bacon and a side of home fries that hadn't been ordered. "On the house," she said, when he looked questioningly at the extras. "My daughter says bacon makes everything better, and I'm inclined to agree." LeBron studied her for a long moment. "You're different, Jasmine Thompson. Most people either treat me like I'm not human or like I'm some kind of god. You just treat me like me," she shrugged. "Everyone who comes through that door is just looking for good food and a little kindness. Famous or not, we're all just trying our best." They talked a bit more as he ate, about kids, about dreams, about the weight of other people's expectations. He told her about his foundation's work with local schools. She told him about Maya's art projects and her dreams of going to college someday. When it came time for the bill, LeBron pulled out his wallet, then paused. "Can I ask you something, Jasmine? Why are you working the night shift at a diner? You seem like someone who could be doing so much more." She thought about her rejected job applications, about the college degree she'd had to abandon when Maya came along. "Life doesn't always go according to plan. But as long as my daughter has food on the table and dreams in her heart, I'm doing okay." He nodded slowly, as if confirming something to himself. After he left, Jasmine found a $1,000 tip tucked under his coffee cup. Her heart raced. This could pay Maya's art class fees, maybe even start a small college fund. But Mr. Reed's rules echoed in her head. No special treatment for celebrities. With a heavy heart, she turned the tip in to her manager, explaining the situation. Mr. Reed's face turned an interesting shade of purple. "You served him? Without clearing it with me first?" "He was just another customer who needed a meal, sir. I didn't make a fuss or take any pictures. Go home, Thompson. We'll discuss this tomorrow." As Jasmine drove home in the pre-dawn darkness, she wondered if she'd made a mistake. But thinking of LeBron's genuine smile, the way he'd relaxed and opened up over that simple breakfast platter, she knew she'd done the right thing. She had no way of knowing that at that very moment, LeBron James was making a phone call that would change her life forever. No way of knowing that her simple act of kindness had set in motion events that would uncover long-buried secrets and connections. As she crawled into bed for her brief nap before taking Maya to school, Jasmine's last thought was of the strange look on LeBron's face when she'd told him her full name, almost like he'd been looking for her all along. As she crawled into bed for her brief nap before taking Maya to school, Jasmine's last thought was of the strange look on LeBron's face when she'd told him her full name, almost like he'd been looking for her all along. 3 hours later, her phone exploded with notifications. "Mom, look!" Maya thrust the phone in her face as Jasmine tried to pour cereal with one hand and pack lunch with the other. "You're famous!" Jasmine's heart dropped as she saw the trending headlines: LeBron's late-night diner visit, the waitress who treated him like family. Basketball star found comfort at local Cleveland diner. Mystery waitress serves up kindness to NBA legend. Someone had snapped photos through the diner windows. There she was, talking and laughing with LeBron James like it was the most natural thing in the world. The pictures weren't great quality, but her face was clearly visible. "Maya, sweetie, we need to hurry. You can't be late for school again." Jasmine's hands shook as she packed Maya's backpack. "But Mom, you're on TV too. Look." The morning news was indeed showing the photos. They were calling it a heartwarming story about genuine kindness in an age of celebrity worship. They were praising the unknown waitress who treated a sports legend like a regular person. Mr. Reed was going to kill her. "Mrs. Martinez can't watch me tonight?" Maya's voice trembled as Jasmine dropped her off at school. "She's not feeling well, baby, but Ms. Jackson next door said you could stay with her after school until I'm done at the convenience store." Jasmine hugged her daughter tight. "Be good, okay? I love you." "Love you too, Mom. Don't worry about the pictures. You did a good thing." Jasmine's eyes filled with tears as she watched Maya skip into school. Her daughter's faith in goodness was so pure, so unshakable. If only the real world worked that way. The convenience store manager was surprisingly understanding when she explained she needed to leave early for an emergency meeting at the diner. Maybe he'd seen the news too. Walking into the Blue Moon Diner at 3 p.m., Jasmine knew something was wrong. Sarah wouldn't meet her eyes. Kenny was stress cooking, the clatter of pots and pans louder than usual. And Mr. Reed stood in the middle of the dining room, his face a storm cloud. My office. Now. Jasmine followed him, her legs feeling like lead. The office walls were covered with printouts of social media posts, news articles, and photos from last night. "Explain this." Mr. Reed pointed to a particularly viral tweet showing her laughing at something LeBron had said. "Sir, I just treated him like any other customer. I didn't take photos, didn't ask for autographs. You tipped off the paparazzi, didn't you? For your 15 minutes of fame?" "What? No, I would never." "Then how do you explain these?" He shuffled through more printouts. "Every news outlet in Cleveland is running this story. Social media is going crazy. I've had reporters calling all morning. I had nothing to do with those photos. I was just doing my job." "Your job," Mr. Reed's voice turned ice cold, "was to follow protocol. Any celebrity customers should have been reported to management immediately. Instead, you chose to make this establishment a media circus." He just wanted a quiet meal. "I was trying to clean out your locker, Thompson. You're fired." The words hit her like a physical blow. "Mr. Reed, please, I need this job. My daughter should have thought of that before you broke the rules. Your final check will be mailed to you." In a daze, Jasmine walked to her locker. The break room bulletin board still held her collection of thank you notes, little pieces of paper holding so many small kindnesses. She took them down one by one, hands trembling. Kenny found her there, staring at the empty board. "This isn't right, Jasmine. You did nothing wrong." She tried to smile, but couldn't quite manage it. "Thanks, Kenny. Take care of yourself, okay?" Sarah caught her at the back door. "I'm so sorry. We all know you'd never call the paparazzi. Someone else must have spotted him and tipped them off." "Yeah, well, doesn't matter now, does it?" The drive home was a blur. Her phone kept buzzing with messages from unknown numbers. Reporters, probably, trying to get her side of the story. She ignored them all. Maya was at Ms. Jackson's when the fever hit. 1 minute she was coloring at the kitchen table. The next, she was burning up and complaining her throat hurt. "Mommy, it hurts to swallow." The emergency room bill would eat up most of her final paycheck, but Jasmine didn't hesitate. 3 hours and 1 strep throat diagnosis later, they were at the 24-hour pharmacy. The prescription cost made her wince. "I'm sorry you got fired because of the nice basketball man," Maya whispered on the way home, her voice raspy. "Don't worry about that, baby. Sometimes doing the right thing has a price, but that doesn't mean we stop doing it." That night, as Maya finally fell asleep thanks to the medicine, Jasmine sat at her tiny kitchen table and looked at her bills. Rent was due next week. The electricity bill was already past due. And now she had medical bills to pay. She opened her laptop, hoping to search for job listings, only to find her email inbox flooded with interview requests from news stations and newspapers. Everyone wanted to know about her interaction with LeBron James. Everyone wanted the story of the waitress who treated him like a regular person. But Jasmine didn't want to be a story. She just wanted to take care of her daughter. As she closed her laptop, her phone dinged with one more email. Unlike the others, this one was from the Cleveland Cavaliers organization. She almost deleted it, thinking it was just another reporter trying to reach her. Something made her open it. The subject line read, "Regarding your conversation with Mr. James, urgent." Jasmine's finger hovered over the delete button. After everything that had happened, she wasn't sure she wanted anything to do with basketball stars or their organizations. But then she thought of that moment in the diner, when LeBron had looked at her so strangely after hearing her name, the way he'd asked about her life, almost like he'd been searching for something. With Maya's fever medicine receipt sitting next to her, like a reminder of everything she had to lose, Jasmine clicked the email open. And that's when everything changed. The email glowed on her screen. "Dear Ms. Thompson, on behalf of the Cleveland Cavaliers organization, we would like to schedule a meeting with you tomorrow morning at 10 a.m. at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse. Mr. James has specifically requested your presence. This is not a media opportunity, and we ask for your discretion. Please respond to confirm your attendance. A car will be sent to pick you up. Regards, Marcus Williams, Executive Office, Cleveland Cavaliers." Jasmine read the email 3 times. Her first thought was that it had to be fake. Her second thought was of Maya, home sick from school tomorrow and needing care. As if on cue, Maya shuffled out of her bedroom, clutching her stuffed giraffe. "Mom? My throat still hurts. Come here, baby." Jasmine pulled her daughter onto her lap, feeling her forehead. Still warm, but not as bad as before. "How about some honey tea?" While the kettle heated, Jasmine called Ms. Jackson. "Of course I can watch her tomorrow," her neighbor said. "After everything you've done for my Charlie when he was sick last month, it's the least I can do." Jasmine typed and deleted her email response 5 times before finally sending, "Dear Mr. Williams, thank you for your email. I can attend the meeting tomorrow at 10 a.m. However, I want to be clear that I have no interest in publicity or media attention. I was simply doing my job that night. Best regards, Jasmine Thompson." The reply came almost immediately. "Car will arrive at 9:30 a.m. Thank you for your discretion." Maya was dozing on the couch when Jasmine's phone rang. It was Sarah from the diner. "Jasmine, you'll never believe what happened after you left. Mr. Reed got chewed out by the owner. Turns out all this publicity is actually good for business. They're talking about featuring the diner in tourism guides now." "That's great, Sarah." Jasmine tried to keep the bitterness from her voice. "He wanted to know if you'd come back. Said he might have been hasty in his decision." Jasmine thought about all those morning shifts, her aching feet, the strict rules, and Mr. Reed's purple face as he fired her. "Thanks, but I think that chapter's closed." After tucking Maya back into bed with another dose of medicine, Jasmine tried to sleep. Instead, she found herself pulling out an old photo album her mother had left her. The leather cover was worn smooth from years of handling. Inside, faded photographs told the story of her childhood. There was her mother, beautiful and young, working as a nurse at Cleveland City Hospital. There were birthday parties, school plays, and quiet moments at home. Jasmine had always wondered why there were so few photos from before she was born. Her mother never talked much about those years, changing the subject whenever Jasmine asked about her father. "Some stories are better left in the past," she'd always said. Now, flipping through those familiar pages, Jasmine noticed something odd. A corner of paper stuck out from behind one of the photos. Carefully, she peeled back the backing. Hidden behind the photograph was a folded newspaper clipping, yellowed with age. The date was from 30 years ago. Most of it was faded beyond reading, but one line stood out. Local hero saves nurse from burning vehicle. The photo accompanying the article was too damaged to make out clearly. Just the blurry image of a man helping someone from a car. Jasmine's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Hope to see you tomorrow. Eljo. She stared at the message, then back at the old newspaper clipping. Something nagged at the edge of her mind, like a word on the tip of her tongue. That night, her dreams were a confused jumble of burning cars, basketball games, and her mother's voice saying, "Some stories are better left in the past." The next morning dawned gray and drizzly. Maya's fever had broken during the night, and she was well enough to be excited about her mom's mysterious meeting. "Maybe he'll give you tickets to a game," she said, as Jasmine tried to decide what to wear. "Or maybe he wants you to be his personal chef." "I think you're getting carried away, sweetie." Jasmine settled on her one good dress, navy blue, simple, professional. It's probably just about all the media attention. At exactly 9:30 a.m., a sleek black car pulled up outside their apartment building. The driver, wearing a Cavalier's cap, opened the door for her. "Good morning, Miss Thompson. Ready to go?" The drive to Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse was silent. Jasmine watched the familiar Cleveland streets pass by, trying to calm her nerves. What could LeBron James possibly want with her? Why all the secrecy? The arena loomed ahead, massive and modern. Instead of the main entrance, the car pulled around to a private door where a woman in a business suit waited. "Ms. Thompson? I'm Angela Chen, Mr. Williams's assistant. Please follow me." They walked through a maze of corridors, past signed jerseys and trophy cases. Jasmine glimpsed the court through an open doorway. Empty now, but she could almost hear the phantom roar of crowds. Angela led her to a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Inside, several people, in suits, sat around a large table. At the head was Marcus Williams, who stood to greet her. "Miss Thompson, thank you for coming. Please, have a seat." Jasmine sat, feeling small and out of place in her simple dress. The executives exchanged glances, seemingly waiting for something or someone. The door opened again. LeBron James walked in, dressed casually in jeans and a Cavalier's hoodie. His presence filled the room, but his expression was serious, almost nervous. "Hello, Jasmine," he said softly. "Thank you for coming. We have a lot to talk about." And that's when she noticed what he was holding. A worn newspaper clipping, identical to the one she'd found hidden in her photo album the night before. Some stories, it seemed, refused to stay in the past. LeBron sat down across from Jasmine, placing the old newspaper clipping on the table between them. The executives quietly excused themselves, leaving only Marcus Williams in the room with them. "I've been looking for you for a long time, Jasmine Thompson," LeBron said, his voice gentle. "Or should I say, Jasmine Marie Thompson, daughter of Sarah Thompson, who used to be a nurse at Cleveland City Hospital." Jasmine's heart skipped a beat. "How do you know my mother's name?" "Because 30 years ago, your mother was in a car accident on Cedar Road. Her car caught fire. A man pulled her out, saved her life." LeBron smoothed out his copy of the newspaper article. "That man was my father." The room seemed to tilt sideways. Jasmine grabbed the edge of the table to steady herself. "What?" "The story never made the papers with names, just local hero saves nurse. But my father told me about it many times when I was growing up. It was one of the proudest moments of his life." Jasmine's hands trembled as she pulled out her own copy of the article from her purse. I just found this last night, hidden in my mother's old photo album. She never told me. My father kept track of your mother for a while, made sure she was okay after the accident. He told me she had a daughter about my age. But then he lost touch, and later when LeBron paused, emotion crossing his face. When he wasn't around anymore, I always wondered about the nurse he saved and her daughter. Marcus Williams spoke up softly. When you told LeBron your name at the diner, he recognized it immediately. Sarah Thompson wasn't a common name, and the timing fit. But why? Jasmine's voice cracked. Why look for me now? LeBron leaned forward. Because my father always said, that night taught him the most important lesson of his life. That sometimes a single moment of kindness can change everything. When you served me at the diner, treating me like a regular person, showing that same kindness, I knew it had to be you. Tears rolled down Jasmine's cheeks. My mother never talked about the accident. She just said some stories were better left in the past. Some stories need to be told, LeBron said firmly, which is why we're here. He nodded to Marcus, who slid a folder across the table. The Cavaliers organization would like to offer you a position, Marcus explained. We're expanding our community outreach program, focusing on single parents and their children. We need someone who understands their struggles firsthand, someone with natural empathy and leadership skills. Jasmine stared at the folder. But I don't have a college degree. I'm just a waitress. You're someone who treats everyone with kindness and dignity, no matter who they are, LeBron interrupted. That's not something you can learn in college. The rest, we can teach you. Marcus opened the folder, revealing a contract. Full benefits, including health insurance. Flexible hours, so you can be there for your daughter. And, he smiled, a salary that means you won't have to work double shifts anymore. I don't understand, Jasmine whispered. Why go to all this trouble for me? LeBron's eyes softened. Because 30 years ago, my father saved your mother's life. And now, in a different way, you saved mine. That night at the diner, I was feeling lost, questioning everything. Your kindness, your wisdom about dealing with expectations. It helped more than you know. But Mr. Reed, the diner, getting fired. A slight smile crossed LeBron's face. Let's just say that wasn't entirely unexpected. We needed to get you out of there, give you a chance at something better. The media attention was convenient. You planned this? Not everything. Your kindness, that was all you. But once I knew who you were, he gestured at the newspaper clipping. Some things are meant to be. Jasmine picked up the contract with shaking hands. The salary made her eyes widen. This would mean Maya could take all the art classes she wanted. They could move to a better apartment. No more choosing between paying bills and buying groceries. There's one more thing, Marcus added. The position includes a scholarship fund for Maya's education. All the way through college. Fresh tears spilled down Jasmine's cheeks. I don't know what to say. Say you'll help us help other families like yours, LeBron said. Your mother and my father's paths crossed for a reason. Now here we are, 30 years later, with a chance to make a difference together. Jasmine thought of all those thank you notes on the diner bulletin board, all those small kindnesses that had seemed so insignificant at the time. She thought of Maya's unwavering belief that doing the right thing mattered, even when it came with a price. When can I start? The smile that lit up LeBron's face matched her own. How about we go tell Maya the good news? I hear she's quite the artist. As they walked out of the conference room, Jasmine paused. LeBron, thank you. Not just for this opportunity, but for helping me understand my mother's story better. Thank my father, he said softly. He's the one who taught me that kindness has a way of coming back around. He looked at the old newspaper clipping one more time before carefully folding it and handing it to her. Keep this. It's your story. Now, too. Jasmine tucked the article into her purse, right next to the last thank you note from the diner. Sometimes the smallest acts of kindness could ripple out in ways we never expect, connecting past and present, strangers and family, loss and hope. As they walked through the arena corridors, Jasmine realized that this wasn't just an ending to her struggles. It was a beginning, a chance to help others like herself, to prove that kindness wasn't just a nice idea, but a force that could change lives. Some stories, it turned out, were meant to be told after all. 2 months into her new job at the Cavaliers organization, Jasmine could hardly believe how much her life had changed. Gone were the aching feet and endless double shifts. Instead, her days were filled with purpose, helping families who reminded her so much of herself. "Mom, look what I made in art class." Maya burst into Jasmine's new office, waving a painting. Ms. Chen, who had become Maya's after-school companion, followed with an amused smile. The painting showed 2 figures, a waitress and a basketball player, sharing a meal at what was clearly meant to be the Blue Moon Diner. Maya had captured the moment perfectly, right down to the chocolate milkshake on the table. "It's beautiful, baby." Jasmine pinned it to her office wall, right next to the framed newspaper clipping about the car accident. "How about we show it to LeBron next time he visits?" "Really? You think he'd like it?" "I think he'd love it." As Maya settled at the small desk they'd set up in the corner of the office, Jasmine reviewed the files for tomorrow's community outreach event. They were launching a new program for single parents, offering job training and childcare support. Already, 50 families had signed up. A knock at her door interrupted her work. It was Marcus Williams, holding a dusty cardboard box. "Found this in the old storage room," he said, setting it down. "Records from the early 90s. Thought you might find something interesting." Curious, Jasmine opened the box. Inside were photographs, newsletters and event programs from the years before LeBron made it big. One envelope caught her eye, labeled simply Cedar Road Cleanup, 1993. Her hands trembled as she opened it. Inside were photos from a community service event. Young men in matching t-shirts picking up trash along Cedar Road, the same street where her mother's accident had happened. And there, in the background of one photo, was her mother. She was younger, her hair longer, but unmistakably Sarah Thompson. She was talking to a man whose face was turned away from the camera. "That's Anthony McClelland," Marcus said quietly, pointing to the man. "LeBron's father." Jasmine stared at the photo. But this was months after the accident. Mom said she never saw him again. Keep looking. The next photo made her gasp. It showed her mother laughing, head thrown back, while Anthony gestured animatedly. They looked comfortable together, like old friends. "There's more," Marcus said. "Check the newsletters." Page after page revealed a hidden story. Her mother had volunteered at community events for months after the accident. There she was helping at a food drive, organizing a health screening day, always somewhere in the background. And often, Anthony McClelland was there too. Why didn't she ever tell me? "Sometimes people keep secrets to protect others," Marcus suggested. Or themselves. A yellowed envelope slipped from between 2 newsletters. Inside was a handwritten letter, the paper fragile with age. Dear Sarah, I know you said we should keep our distance, that it's better this way. You're probably right. But I want you to know that pulling you from that car wasn't just about saving a life. It was about learning what real courage looks like. You showed me that when you went back to nursing the very next week. Still healing yourself, but determined to help others. Your daughter is lucky to have you as a mother. Maybe someday our kids will meet, and this story will come full circle. Until then, know that you taught me what it means to be a hero. It's not about one big moment, but about all the small moments of kindness that follow. Take care of yourself. And little Jasmine. Anthony tears blurred Jasmine's vision. All those years, her mother had carried this story alone. All those times Jasmine had asked about her father, about their life before Cleveland. Her mother had held these memories close, protecting them like precious jewels. Does LeBron know about these? Marcus shook his head. We just found the box this morning. Thought you should see it first. Another photo slipped out, this one showing her mother at what looked like a basketball game. She was cheering from the stands, watching a young man who must have been Anthony playing in a local league game. The pieces started falling into place. Her mother's insistence on watching every Cavaliers game. The way she'd tear up sometimes when LeBron made an amazing play. How she'd always said that heroes don't always wear capes. Sometimes they just show up when you need them most. There's something else, Marcus said, pulling out his phone. I did some digging. That community health screening your mother helped organize? It led to a whole program at Cleveland City Hospital. It's still running today, 30 years later. Hundreds of families get free health care because of what she started. Jasmine thought of all the lives touched by that program. All because one man stopped to help a stranger, and that stranger decided to pay it forward. My mother passed away thinking her story didn't matter, Jasmine whispered. But look at all of this. Look at all the lives she touched. Maya looked up from her homework. Mom, are you crying? Happy tears, baby. Jasmine wiped her eyes. Just learning some new things about Grandma Sarah. Can you tell me about her? Jasmine looked at the photos spread across her desk. Her mother, young and vibrant, making a difference in ways she'd never known about. Yes, sweetheart. I think it's time you heard the whole story. Later that night, as Jasmine tucked Maya into bed in their new apartment, her daughter asked, Mom, do you think Grandma Sarah and LeBron's dad were friends? I think they were something even better, Jasmine replied. They were proof that sometimes the best family isn't the one you're born into, it's the one you build through kindness. She stayed up late that night, creating a scrapbook with the newly discovered photos and letters. Tomorrow, she would show it to LeBron. Their fathers' paths had crossed once before, changing both their lives. Now here they were, a generation later, continuing that legacy of kindness. Some stories, Jasmine realized, weren't meant to stay hidden. They were meant to be discovered exactly when we needed them most, reminding us that every act of kindness, no matter how small, sends ripples through time that we may never see. And somewhere, she was sure, her mother and Anthony were smiling. And somewhere, she was sure, her mother and Anthony were smiling. The next morning, Jasmine arrived early at Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse, the scrapbook tucked safely in her bag. She found LeBron in the practice gym, shooting free throws in the quiet morning light. Got a minute? She asked, her voice echoing in the empty arena. He caught the ball and turned to her with a smile. For you? Always. They sat in the front row of the empty stands, and Jasmine carefully opened the scrapbook. As LeBron looked through the photos and letters, his expression shifted from curiosity to wonder to deep emotion. I had no idea, he said softly. touching the photo of his father and Sarah Thompson at the community cleanup. Dad never told me about staying in touch with her. My mom never told me either. Jasmine pointed to the letter. But look at what he wrote about hoping their kids would meet someday. It's like they knew, somehow. LeBron read the letter again, his fingers tracing his father's handwriting. You know what's crazy? That night at the diner, when you brought me that chocolate milkshake without me asking, Dad used to do the same thing. Said sometimes people don't know what they need until someone shows them a little kindness. A comfortable silence fell between them as they looked through more photos. There was one of Anthony teaching kids to play basketball at a community center, Sarah watching from the sidelines. Another showed them serving food at a homeless shelter, both laughing at something now lost to time. I've been thinking, LeBron said finally, about why your mom kept all this secret, and why my dad never told me about staying in touch. Why? Do you think they did? Because they knew if we found out too soon, it would become about them, their story. But they wanted us to find our own way to each other, to make our own connection. Jasmine thought about that night at the diner, how natural it had felt to show kindness to a stranger, how that simple act had set in motion events that uncovered this larger story. There's something else you should see, she said, pulling out her phone. She showed him the research Marcus had done about her mother's health screening program. 30 years of helping families get health care, all because your dad stopped to help my mom that night. LeBron's eyes widened as he read the numbers. Thousands of children vaccinated, countless families receiving preventive care, lives saved through early detection. You know what this means? He asked. Everything we're doing now with the community outreach program, we're not starting something new. We're continuing what they began. Just then, the arena doors opened. Maya came running in, followed by Ms. Chen. She stopped short when she saw LeBron, suddenly shy. Hey, Maya, LeBron called warmly. Your mom was just showing me some old pictures. Want to see? Maya climbed into the seat between them, looking at the photos with wide eyes. Is that Grandma Sarah? She looks just like you, Mom. And that man there, LeBron pointed to his father. That's my dad. They look happy, Maya observed. Like they were good friends? They were, Jasmine said. They just showed it in a different way, by helping others. LeBron pulled something from his jacket pocket, a folded piece of paper. That reminds me, I found this in my father's old Bible last night. I think you should have it. It was another letter, newer than the first, but still years old. Dear Anthony, I saw LeBron on TV tonight playing his first high school game. He has your spirit, your drive to be more than what the world expects. Jasmine's the same way, always, thinking of others, just like you did that night on Cedar Road. I know we agreed to keep our distance, to let our children find their own paths, but watching them grow up, even from afar, I see pieces of that night in both of them. Your courage, my determination, and most importantly, that shared belief that kindness matters more than anything else. Maybe someday they'll meet and recognize something familiar in each other. Until then, know that your son is doing you proud. Just like I hope my daughter is doing me proud. With gratitude, Sarah. She wrote this just before she got sick, Jasmine whispered, recognizing the slight tremor in the handwriting from her mother's early symptoms. She never got to see Maya born, or see me become a mother myself. But she saw enough to know who you'd become, LeBron said. Just like my father saw enough of me to know I'd find my way. Maya looked between them. So, Are we kind of like family now? LeBron laughed. I'd say we've been family for 30 years. We just didn't know it yet. Later that afternoon, Jasmine stood at the podium in the Cavaliers Community Center, preparing to launch their new single-parent support program. The room was filled with families, all hoping for a chance at a better life. As she looked out at the crowd, she saw echoes of her own story in their faces. The tired but determined parents, the hopeful children, the dreams waiting to take flight. 30 years ago, she began, two people showed us that kindness isn't just about one moment. It's about all the moments that follow. Today, we're here to continue their legacy. In the front row, Maya beamed up at her. LeBron stood at the back of the room, nodding encouragingly. And somewhere, Jasmine knew her mother and Anthony were still watching over them all, their simple act of kindness rippling outward through time, touching lives they never could have imagined. Because some stories don't end. They just keep growing, generation after generation, reminding us that the greatest gifts we can give are the ones that can't be seen. Courage, kindness, and the belief that every person deserves a chance to write their own story. And as Jasmine looked at the old newspaper clipping one last time, "Local hero saves nurse from burning vehicle," she smiled. The real story wasn't about being saved from a burning car. It was about what happens after the flames die down, when ordinary people choose to keep that spark of kindness alive. That was the story her mother and Anthony had written together, one small act of kindness at a time. Now it was her turn, their turn, to write the next chapter. Thanks for reading. Where are you following this story from? Drop your location in the comments below. I love seeing how stories connect people from all around the world. If this tale of unexpected kindness and hidden connections touched your heart, don't forget to hit that like button. It really helps others find and enjoy these stories too. And remember, sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change lives in ways we never expect. Just like Jasmine and LeBron discovered, you never know how your story might be connected to someone else's. See you in the next story.